Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. This is a special episode of the show today for a couple of reasons. This is officially our, this show marks our 10 years of doing the podcast. Sandy, can you believe that we've been doing this for 10 years?
10 years. At times it's felt like a blur, and at times it's felt like 10 years, I guess. It depends. It's been an awesome ride, though. It's 10 years of lots of fun, lots of lessons, and lots of growth. I'm we'll get into it, but it's been a great ride, and glad that we hopefully have some listeners that have been along with us for the whole 10 years.
Yeah, I was going through just looking at some of the past episodes, and there's a few that I actually don't even remember. I'm trying to remember the content of what was going on in some of them, and they slipped me, so I had to listen to a few of them again. But there's also one other reason why this show is special, and that is that Sandy has decided to move on to some bigger and better things. His goals setting that he was doing for the year made him sort of look at the best use of his time and what he was doing in the future, and decided that this is going to be his last show. So that's another reason for us to sort of celebrate. We've got a couple of guests with us that have been longtime friends of the show. So, tell us a little bit about why you maybe decided to move on.
Yeah, I always envision my funeral being a celebration, not a sad day. So I kind of see it similarly. I don't want to ruin the energy here of the show with any sadness. Hopefully we can celebrate the last 10 years. And yeah, I got part of my process that we'll talk about this a bit today too with our guests. But how do we look at planning or goal setting, or part of my version of that is reflecting on the year past and looking through where we spent time, where we can get the highest and best use. There's a little plug for someone to come here of our time, but our energy and everything. And there's so many things going on in life. There's so many versions of content, and we were just talking about that before the show, right? All the different versions out there, and so many things to keep up with. And yeah, I'm super thankful for the 10 years, all of our listeners, all of our guests, Rob, you, and I've had a great partnership along the way here. It's translated into some amazing things in my life that I would never have thought would have come from this. And it's been a real blessing. So I'm super grateful for the 10 years. And, at times you go about doing things for a while and you kind of think maybe, not that there's anything bigger or better. You kind of said bigger and better. I don't know if that's the case. But just time to change it up and change up some of the energy that I'm putting into things, and go test out some new things that I'm sure will be challenging at times, but also fulfilling in maybe different ways. And so I'm going to continue producing content. I'll put out a little bit more of what that looks like in the coming days or weeks here ahead, but people can stay tuned for that. And that's really it. I don't really have much more to say on that, but other than I'm looking forward to kind of reflecting a little bit on this show with some of our past guests that have been awesome supporters along the way. And I think it's going to be a great show here. So it should be fun.
Yeah, we've definitely had a lot of good times, a lot of laughs. We've learned a lot from the people that we've had on here together. And, it was one of those things where you and I had been talking real estate for, just days and days, months on the phone together. And we thought, why don't we sit down and put this out for people to listen and learn from? And that was how it started. And so we've got a few of our good friends and friends of the show here with us. First, I want to introduce Quentin D'Souza, who was our very first guest on the show on episode 2. Yeah. And was subsequently on episode 108.5, which I thought was kind of funny. We called it a special episode, and also episode 136, and he co-hosted episode 153 with me. So he's been on, and I think there was a couple other times you were on, just like popping in and out for different reasons. But thanks for joining us today, Quentin.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me.
We got Ryan Carr as well. Ryan's been on the show a couple times. He was episode 29 and episode 131. So if you want to hear like the whole backstory of these guys, we're going to get into a little bit of their background today. But if you want to hear like the more in-depth interviews that we've done, go back and listen to these episodes. And we've welcome Ryan.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you guys.
And we've got Meg here too, a longtime friend of the show. And he was on episode 23 and 127. So these guys have all been on a few times. So like I said, go back and listen to their stories. They got good stories to tell. And hopefully we'll have Michael Dominguez on as well, who was one of our very first guests. Got Sandy and I started. I think we both bought our first, or maybe not my first investment property, one of my first investment properties. I think same with you, working with Michael. And he's been a good influence with us. So I think he's going to be joining us at some point along here. So, but welcome, Dion.
Thanks, man. Happy to be back. And sorry to see Sandy go.
Thanks.
Well, so again, I guess we'll start with Quentin, and we'll just talk a little bit about what he's doing and, some of his investment strategies. And then today we were going to, just because I thought the theme of Sandy deciding to move on from the show was part of how he set his goals and plans for the future. I thought maybe Quentin and these guys, we could talk about, how you set your goals and tell us maybe about some of your big goals as well for the next year and to come.
Yeah, sure. So I guess a couple of different things. One, when I started investing in real estate, I really was using the BRRRR strategy on single family homes and doing like conversion projects. So, I was really scaling my business in 2008 to 2013, buying those type of properties. And then I had quit my job as a teacher in 2013. And really went full time, did like flips for a year. And then I started to get into small apartment buildings. And now I'm really more focused on apartment buildings. So usually they're between 10 and 100 units. And I'm focused in Ontario. And that's really where a majority of my asset base is. I've got about 120 million in assets in Ontario. I have properties in Florida, and I'm involved in a number of projects in the U.S. as well. But I am only a partner in those. I am the main general partner, you'd say, in all my projects in Canada and in Ontario specifically. So that's where I focus. And I remember Sandy and Kate at Durham REI meetings. Just like sitting in the crowd, chatting, talking, and like they were wholesaling properties at the time. I remember they're doing deals and getting things done. And then I remember I think it was probably, I don't know if it's 2014 or 15, and then I introduced them to Mark Loeffler. And then like all of a sudden it was like craziness, like they're doing everything everywhere, and got into the realtor side of the business. Then I saw them in the property management, and then doing like BRRRRs on like small multifamilies. I was like, wow, they're doing so awesome. That's so cool. So I just remember them like wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and like ready to rock the world. And it's so impressive to see, Sandy where he is now. I'm really so happy for him and for Kate, and just what the life that they've kind of built, and just super happy for them.
Thanks, Quentin. Yeah, it's great. I mean, and you're, it's great that we have you back here because you were you were our first guest, but we also, Rob and I met at your club, of course, Durham REI, which is seems to be, from what I see, a place where a lot of people go to start and just blossom into doing amazing things. And I think everyone on the show has been in some way, shape, or form a big part of that group. So, yeah, it's pretty cool to have everyone back here. And you said a lot of things that I've been doing, but I think focus has been one of my maybe problems at times, maintaining focus on less things. So I think that's, that's kind of part of the transition here too, was just focusing on less things.
So what are you focusing less on? I'm kind of curious.
Well, I have and we'll tie this into some planning and stuff, goal setting, I guess, too, because the last couple of years, every time I've looked back on actually about 3 years, I would say in a row here, I've looked back on my years and gone, wow, things are getting a little complex. I should try and simplify this. And most years I haven't been that successful at doing that. And it's fun in a way being entrepreneurial and kind of going around and trying different things. And it's also, as you plan out like all around life and having, a well-rounded life, I think it often you need to spend less time on certain areas. For me, that in a reflection here, it's kind of spending a lot of time in business world, which I love. And at the same time, there's lots of other things that I want to spend time on too. I love upgrading my health in various ways and having, things that I want to do with that are fun, but also kind of get the competitive juices going. I want to do a bit more traveling around that and going to do some cool runs around the world. Things like that just are interesting and I think growth oriented in different ways than business. And it requires some time and effort and focus. And I think it also, when you have some downtime, I find there's lots of time to get creative. And often if you're just running around from one thing to another, you lose that part of your life too. So at times last year, maybe it's it was an interesting year. And in a lot of ways, lots of more challenges than I've ever had in business world, which has been awesome. Like, probably the most growth-oriented year I've ever had in business as well. But it also kind of sets it sets a limelight on some things that you could, tidy up as well. So that requires some focus to do that. And so a lot of those reasons there has led to just trying to simplify a little more and streamline things. So,
are you eliminating a business line or like a type of business that you're doing or something like that?
Really focused. No, really focused on. We haven't been investing much over the last couple of years. We've been exiting a partnership on some things that's led to just tidying up a lot of the investment side, which has been beneficial, but also taken a while. So it may be in a good way. I've kind of taken a step off the pedal there in the last couple of years. I do want to get back more into that this year for sure. And then we have our team, our brokerage, and the property management company. Those are the three kind of main operating businesses. And so we're going to focus on those a lot. I think there's lots of opportunities in the property management space actually that we want to dive into more. But we have a bunch of cool things in the works on that. Actually, as a little bit of a teaser to that, I won't explain much more on this show, but we see a pretty big opportunity with that company, just with we really want to help educate tenants more, help them understand processes more. I think as much as we like to complain about that side of things in Ontario, there's also an opportunity to help. And, having great tenants really helps the overall investment, right? They take better care of it. You can, sleep at night more without any issues. So, we see that as an opportunity to help educate tenants a little better. And we're going to be doing a lot of that over the next year or so and beyond.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very interesting, Sandy. I don't know if you remember this, but Quentin was he really helped us get the show off the ground. I think more mentally for me than anything else. But I remember we went to him, we said, Quentin, we're going to do a podcast. And he went, great, come do an interview at Durham REI and announce it. And I don't even think we had recorded one yet. Or it's possible that we hadn't recorded one yet, but at the very most we had done one. And then Quentin said, okay, come and do an interview at, I think we interviewed Mark Laughlin.
I was going to say, it was Mark, I think. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you know what? It's for me, it's always important to support people and help people with whatever their goals and dreams are. And because I'm a teacher at heart, and that's right up my alley. Like local businesses, Dion's family and, all that stuff. Like I'm all for supporting, people and different things that they're doing. So that I'm always happy to do that. Particularly like I feel like a lot of the people in Durham REI are my family, and try to help family is just what you do, right? So.
Yeah. And I got reminiscing when you were talking about Sandy and Kate being in the front row, I just remember we were always in the front. We sat right up in front, so we could.
I didn't want to say it, but yeah.
But those were good times, and like so. I think when I'm not sure if this is the same reason why you started going to Durham REI, but I went there because I looked at an ad and that you had put out, and it said, "Can you wholesale houses in Canada?" And you said, "Yes, you can." And so that was like, I was like, I'm there. I got to go learn about this. Sandy, was that like why you started going, or were you just looking for a real estate education in general?
You know what? I don't even know if I can remember why we ended up there or how. I remember it must have been 2012, I want to say.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
11 even, 2012, yeah. And I don't know how the heck we ended up there. I don't know. That's a great question.
Maybe I called, like, did you have wholesaler ads or something like that?
That's possible. Yeah, that's possible.
I probably called your wholesaler ad and like, hey, who are you? Do you have any properties I can buy? I'm like,
funny you say that. I got one of those today, and I'm after this show, I'm going to call him because it was a really great letter. Actually, I love doing that because you never know what that leads to.
Yeah, there you go. As you see,
yeah. Funny when you get the guy on the other end that you already know. You're like, oh, hey, what's up, man?
Yeah.
Yeah. How you doing? How's the wife and kids? Ryan.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, you've been on the show a couple times. You're doing some really cool things. You've got your podcast, and so let's just take a step back and learn a little bit about what you've been up to.
Yeah, so I think all of us probably met somewhere in around the Durham REI thing, as you guys have mentioned. I look back, and I think it was around 2014, 2015 that I met everybody here, and what a ride it's been in the last number of years. I mean, all the ups and downs of the market, the trials and tribulations, and very, very cool to see what everybody's built on this call, on the Zoom, on this StreamYard. So for me, over the last number of years, and last year in particular, it was great to like grow and acquire properties and do deals and all this stuff. Last year, I actually took a step back and I said, hey, how can we do less? Right? If I want to do more of something, let's do more of less. And that was one of the hardest things to go from, early beginnings, doing my first deal in 2012, going full time in 2014, and then, just trying to ramp up as hard as I possibly humanly could. And then coming to, putting the brakes on and saying, hey, let's take a little bit of time off. So I very much resonate with what Sandy's saying and saying, hey, let's just take a step back. Let's focus. Let's recalibrate here and see what's most important. Is it business? Is it life? Is it family? Is it money? Is it health? What is it? So I did a bunch of that last year, which was a lot of fun. And now this year, I'm going to turn the taps on again. I'm going to do a few more deals, finish up some developments that I have on the go. What are you laughing at, Quinn?
You're addicted. Don't tell me.
I'm an addict. A real estate
He's
addict.
I'm going to take a break. I'm taking a break.
I did. Last year, I did way less than I usually did. But for this year, I'm going to do a handful of flips, finish up some developments that I have on the go. And again, recalibrate and make sure that I'm enjoying what I'm doing, because that's the most important.
Yeah, like it seems like I know that you probably are doing less. And you know what? Even if if you decide to take a step back, you can still move along at the same rate, I find sometimes with less of your time being taken up in your mind on those things.
You get smarter as you go. You get smarter as you go, for sure. So like maybe what used to take 10 units of effort, maybe you can do with 7 units of effort now, because you're more efficient with those 7 instead of, what used to be taking 10, right? You just more people, who to call. I remember when basement apartments were all the rage, and that was the gold standard of doing flips and doing the rentals, and buy the duplex, put the basement apartment in, buy the grandma's bungalow with the blue toilet and the pink bathtub and all this stuff, and the unfinished basement. Well, there's only so many unfinished basements to go around, right? Let's be honest. And those basements are starting to slowly disappear. And now you got to be more creative with your strategies. And I mean, looking back, when you're doing these basement apartments, all of the rules were changing from time to time. So now if you want to do a basement apartment, everybody on this call knows what they need to do, right? If they so chose to do a basement apartment. And obviously most people have graduated on from those things, but like, yeah, you get smarter with your efforts for sure.
Yeah, and I used to hear a lot of people would make the point of that real estate wasn't about passion for them. It was a means to an end kind of thing. And it's never been that for me. So like, when you start off, and obviously, we all kind of did the same thing, right, with the basement apartments. So, as great as it is to have a sort of set it and forget it method to doing that strategy, for me, it got boring, right? Like when you're doing the same thing and every one of them looks the same, and that product you're pumping out doesn't excite you anymore, that then does, for me, like it was time to move on and do something else.
Yeah. You guys have heard that saying, what got you here won't get you there. Right. I forget who said it, but it's the truth, and what worked in 1970 may not work today. And what works today might not work in 15 years. Like, who knows, right? But you have to adapt and be flexible with that kind of thing.
I got to say that Ryan is really I just want to say, if you haven't picked up his book and you're thinking about doing some sort of infill development or something like that, you're really missing out a key piece of the puzzle for you. This guy is really smart. He's so like, down to earth type of guy, but very smart in the way that he is thinking about development and infill and being able to maximize a piece of land. So if you haven't picked up that book, you definitely should. So
what's it called?
The highest and best use.
The highest and best use playbook, finding the unfair advantage over your real estate competition. Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks for the plug, Quentin. Much appreciated.
And the highest and best use.com, right? Is that where they
That's
get the
right.
book?
Yeah, it's on Amazon all over the place. Yeah.
Right on. Okay. And Dion, just sitting quietly over there. We need to get you involved in this conversation.
Fiji. Sorry.
So just to clarify, you should clarify that, Quentin, right? So there are very few Fijians who choose to live in Canada or spend any time in Canada because it's just too damn cold. But on this video call today, you have two of us. Quentin and I were both born in Fiji, which is a tropical island, which is where I'm on a different tropical island as I speak to you today. But that's how we all met. And again, I think I've met everybody on this call, again, thanks to Quentin and I guess that space and environment that he created over at Durham REI. It's really been a hub of networking for so many people for so many years. So all of us have a lot to thank you for there, Quentin. Yeah.
Dion always had such smooth presentations. For anybody who's ever seen him present, his voice is just, the guy's just velvet. Like, good God. He's just so smooth up there. He just knows his stuff and just, I don't know, just comes out so naturally.
And his visuals too.
Well,
his visuals are super awesome.
Yeah.
Did you lived in Australia for a while, right?
Yeah, I am Australian. That's why I named my company Kanga Mortgage. Easy to remember. But yeah, I spent most of my life in Canada, and I married a Canadian, which brought me to Canada, Durham region in particular. And where I've spent most of my life. And now we split our time between our place in Pickering and over here in Barbados, which is we've been sort of bouncing back and forth for the last couple of years. And a lot of that has to do with, again, like the fact that we chose to get into real estate with a plan. And that plan was to try and use real estate to help us design, the life that we want to live. And that really is spending more time in the sunshine. I got two daughters who are now 9 and 11. And to be able to give them this lifestyle where they're kind of like international citizens. We were in Canada, we were in Fiji, we were in Australia, just all within the last year. So to be able to do all of that, it really is because we managed to focus on real estate for a period of time. And now we're using that real estate to serve our life rather than, and for a period of time, like all of us did, our lives served our construction of our real estate portfolios. But it's all got to be for something. And that is, setting up the life that you want to live. So that's how I've used real estate in the last couple of years. And I think the first time you guys interviewed me, I remember again, you approached me at the Durham meeting, Rob. And you're like, Dion, you should come on our podcast. Number one, I didn't know what a podcast was back then. You actually helped me download an app on my phone so I could understand what one was. And then I remember you interviewing me, and I distinctly remember me being in my office and most people in my business their office is in the basement in the one bedroom with a little window. And I remember that interview from many years ago. And in fact, that interview, guys, and the advertising that I did on your podcast really drove my business in my early years. So I have a lot to thank Rob and Sandy for giving me that exposure. And it really was like a springboard for me in getting my name out there. So thank you so much. And now I'm happy to say that, over years we've figured out, like you, Sandy, and I give a lot of credit to you because I've seen the things you do, and I probably do maybe 20% of the things that you do, and I just don't know how you get it all done. Because I built a team, we've put in systems, we've grown, we've dealt with changing markets and, growing and managing our portfolio. But you've done that on a scale which is really amazing. And I don't think I've ever seen you break a sweat. Like, you just seem to be the calm, cool, Zen-like person who just manages to have this storm going on around you and just get it all done. So you're an inspiration in that regard. I wish I could be a little bit more Zen-like sometimes. My wife would probably wish that too.
You guys need to spend more time in Fiji. I hear it's pretty chill over there.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah.
Yeah, different country, different demographics, different economic standards too.
I think the Breakthrough podcast for you guys was probably one of the first, if not the first, Canadian real estate podcast to really hit. No,
I think so. I mean, when I was looking for to try and learn, that was one of the other reasons why we started it, was because I was trying to learn Canadian specific information, and there wasn't any there. Mm-hmm. So if we weren't the first, there was maybe a couple guys that did, a few episodes, and then the show dropped off and went away or something like that, right? But that I did see that there was a need for it at the time in the market.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly. There was actually, I remember researching, there was half dozen shows that had started and done 3 or 4 episodes, and then that was it, right? And so, I talk about this story a lot because it's 10 plus years of doing the show. The first 2 years, or give or take, there really wasn't, and we weren't really doing it for this purpose, but if you look back, there wasn't much that we were getting out of it aside from the interaction, which was great with the guests, but it's not like we were getting business coming in or money flowing to us in any way, shape, or form. And then 2-ish years, somewhere in that window, which I find is a very common theme in my life in any business venture, kind of that 2-year window of being consistent and doing anything consistent, you start to, all of a sudden, that hockey stick starts to take off, right? And all of a sudden you get not just one thing coming, but multiple, and then it takes off, right? So those other shows obviously didn't have the big picture in mind, and they didn't get what they wanted probably in the first few episodes, and they just decided that was it for them. And
well, it is interesting, Sandy. What was your motivation when we started? Because neither of us were realtors, and we didn't think of it as something to drive business to us as realtors, right? So when you started it, what was your motivation?
Well, we honestly, I think we saw a little bit of what Quentin was doing with the club, and we were like, this is it's great to have these conversations, to share, to give back. I love being part of communities in lots of forms, just that community feel where everyone's kind of winning together and sharing and collaborating. I think that's a really great thing for business in in all business. And I just love that. I love doing that. I love going to those meetups. I love talking to others about what they're up to, sharing. And podcasting at the time it was really hard to put together a podcast at the time. Now it's pretty simple, but back then I remember I spent a week I'm not that great at technology, but I don't even remember what we did. We both did, I guess, I'm assuming. I don't really remember the specifics, but we took a whole week, day and night, trying to put together how the heck you get onto iTunes. And that took days trying to figure that out. And then I remember there was one day where you got us onto Stitcher, and it's just that was a process. It wasn't on all the platforms all at once. It was hey, I figured out how to do this and get us on here. Yeah, it was a lot of work, and that was to me. We were listening to a lot of American content, right? American shows, and there was so much. There's great content, but there was always that little gap between Canadian and American. And I think at the time, I think both of us, we kind of thought there's a gap there. We got to serve the Canadian demographic a little better here. And And I don't know, I just leap of faith, I guess, to see where we would go. We didn't really know. But we wanted to learn too, right? We wanted to learn more ourselves. So that's why we went and got these great guests to come on early and teach us. And hopefully, we thought there'd be some other people that wanted to learn too.
Sandy, here's a question for you guys. So as you started your podcast years ago, obviously, as you say, it was harder to start it at that point, but there was less competition. Now it's easier to start the podcast, right? Anybody can do it, but there's more competition. So how do you guys, as hosts of a long-standing show, see that from the economic and competition perspective, knowing what you know now and looking back?
Good question. I mean, anytime there's something that's hard, it's usually hard for a reason, but it's usually more opportunistic in a way because it's harder to get into. There's certainly way more competition now. We can see in our numbers, like we used to get, I might get about the same amount of listeners, but there's other people getting, similar traction and tons of listeners too. And so you have to be creative for sure to stand out more. That's for sure. You can't just, doing the same old thing. Doesn't necessarily, you said this earlier, Ryan, right? What got you here won't get you there. And so you definitely have to get creative and make some pivots here and there. But having a show or creating content is the two biggest things I found from it. Is obviously interviewing people is an amazing thing because you can get access to people that you wouldn't necessarily get access to otherwise, and you can do that in a podcast or in videos or writing a book or something. Just interviewing people is a great way to get access, and then build authority, right? Like if you're out there, it doesn't even matter how many people see it necessarily, but when you're out there talking to someone that has authority already and you're the one interviewing them, your authority goes to the roof. And regardless of how many people actually listen to the show, I've always found that if I go and interact with someone and then I tell them who I am and whatnot, and I say, yeah, go look me up and you'll find some stuff. And they go look it up and you're like, wow, this. So you don't even have to have actual listeners. If you're going about day-to-day life and talking to people and you tell them to go look at your show or your interview with someone, your credibility goes through the roof. If you don't have that, that's why so many people started podcasts, right? If you don't have that, it's like someone else does, and you're all of a sudden a little bit lower on that bar of authority in whatever niche you want to have that authority in. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, but it did.
It was good. Rob, what do you think? Same deal. Well,
I find for me that I don't really pay attention to what anyone else is doing. And I know that I have had interactions with other people who have podcasts and they're always trying, they think that I've got some kind of magic sauce that, we dumped on our show and that got us to where we are. But honestly, it's totally organic. And if there was any in our listenership is what I mean, we didn't really go out and push it. It just gained its own traction. And if I was going to go back, I would definitely say that we should have, for whatever it was worth at the time, I think we were just doing it for fun. But if I was going to go back, I'd say we should try to get it into the ears of people that want this kind of information a little bit more, just to be more helpful at the very least.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, if there's anyone that we imitated, I'd say it's probably Bigger Pockets, because I believe Bigger Pockets was out at the time.
Yeah.
They were pretty young still. I think it maybe been around for a year or something like that. And so that was sort of what we modeled the show after. But other than that, I'm not I don't even really listen to any other podcasts, to be honest.
I'll listen to yourself.
I can listen to our old ones just to refamiliarize myself with the guest and what they had to say and that kind of thing. But I'm not really listening to any other ones. So we weren't influenced by that. It's just the way that we interacted with each other and the information that we wanted to pull from the guests, I guess, is the core was not to imitate or be like anybody else. It was what do we want to learn from this guest, right? What do we want to pull out of them?
Yeah.
And so that was more the focus of where the entire show and the form of it came from.
Very cool.
I have a question for Sandy, actually. And I don't know if you want to discuss this or not, but the real estate investing community in general is small. So I hear different things about different, ways that everybody does business. And I was curious, did you end up like selling your portfolio to a REIT or something like that? Was that part of the exit that you were talking about?
No, not exactly. I mean, I'd be okay with that if we were going to do that. We didn't do that. No, I'm not sure where you might have heard that. I'm trying to think where you would have heard that. We haven't sold. So I have a chunk of my portfolio that we're still working some things out on, that we still are owning and operating together with a partner of mine. I mean, if there's a REIT that's listening in some way, shape, or form that wants to acquire us, maybe we'd be open to that.
The Quentin D'Souza REIT.
Yeah.
He's opening up the door there.
That's right.
We haven't done that yet. No, we haven't done that.
Was it part of your exit strategy, or?
I don't think a REIT would be. I think our most of those properties are too small probably for a REIT to want to acquire them, I would think, or an investment model like that. I mean, a big part of why I probably, like a lot of us here, I've seen like the smaller properties have just become tougher and tougher to make any sense of, right? So we did a few bigger apartment buildings, and we want to transition more into that space, and that's kind of the big reason ultimately for shutting down that more consistent operation that we were running. And but we haven't sold. We've sold a couple, but we haven't sold like in a big portfolio sale or anything. So I'm not sure where you would have heard that specifically, but that hasn't happened.
No, too bad. We're some of us are hoping for that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, Quentin, other than you, who does buy a 100-unit apartment building?
Yeah.
I mean, there are lots of smaller, like not necessarily listed. The listed REITs would do that, but you would also have smaller, like private REITs, private LPs. There are those that do that. It's just as Sandy's saying, the numbers are harder the smaller you go, and just the way that the landlord tenant board works. It's more advantageous on scale than it is in like ones or twos, right? Because when you don't have income for a year in one property and that's your sole income, that could take you out. But if you have 100 units and you have one unit and they're paying 900, and then when you turn them over because they haven't paid for a year and now they're paying 1,500. It just changes the value of the building, right? So it's a different model.
Just going back to what you were saying, Dion, about Sandy not breaking a sweat or whatever. I do remember, like, I think just being in the space that we're in, obviously you have to be able to handle challenges quite well. But we were doing a show, I guess about a year ago. I think we did a challenges show. It was just me and you.
Was it?
And we talked over all of the challenges that we've had in the past. And I know you were having like a big issue at the time, but it's funny. Like, I think that there is a level of being able to look at it from outside of yourself, look at the problem from outside of yourself. And I think Sandy's pretty good at that.
Oh yeah. And Rob, if it was a big issue, it's just funny. It's a big issue. We spoke about it on a podcast, and I can't even remember what it was. So maybe we got through that issue okay. Is it you? Were you talking to me about the issue, or is it
Sandy?
Yeah. Oh, Sandy's issue. Got it.
Hey man, we've all got issues. I would have placed my bet that you've had one. There's only been one guest ever that told me that they had no issues.
Is that right? I think
good.
But that guest is delusional.
There he is. Look at this guy.
Yay.
Speaking of issues.
Michael Dominguez just jumped on with us. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hey.
Yeah. Oh, hang on.
What, you're in a car?
How you doing?
Yeah. How are you?
Okay, just a sec, guys. So I am actually in the Dominican Republic right now, just coming off a cruise ship, and I'm with my friends Jesus Tavares and Susan Ho, and they are actually former Durham REI members. So I come
There
all
you
the
go.
way to Dominican Republic just to say hi to these guys. So
Well, thanks for joining us. Michael, I'm going to just refresh everybody. He was we've already talked about you, Michael. We pumped you up a little bit and where you fall into everything, but you were also episode 4 on our show. So one of our very first guests. And we also did for a little while something called the Michael Minute. I don't know if you even remember doing that. But I think we did like
Absolutely.
3 or 4 of those where you'd pop on and give us a little real estate tip in the middle of the show.
yes, absolutely, and obviously I'm not. I'll listen to the show later, but no, I'm just so happy for you guys that it's amazing. I'm sure you guys have talked about this a number of times about where we all were 8-10 years ago and where we all are now, and you're in Mexico, I'm in Dominican Republic. It's life's changed a lot, and real estate has done a lot for that. So
Yeah, absolutely. And we've already mentioned, of course, we've been talking a lot about this is going to be Sandy's last show. He's decided to move on and do some other stuff. And that was to do, we tied it in with, just his planning that he's done and his goal setting and where he wants to be and what he wants to spend time on and that kind of thing. So we're trying to sort of blend that into this conversation. And so if we can ask you, what are some of the goals that you have?
well, it's we're all entering a new chapter in our lives, obviously, and in the case of Lisa and I, we're looking to do more traveling, more fun, more just enjoying ourselves and using the wealth we built from real estate to fund our lifestyle. And we're actually in Florida for the next 3 months as well, and wintering outside of Canada was a lot of fun, and yeah, this would never have been possible without real estate for sure. And traveling the world is really what I want to do, and I want to experience as much as I can experience.
So the goals that you're setting are just which destinations do we want to get to?
At this point in our life, our goal is we've reached our financial freedom number, and now we're just looking to create as many bucket list life points as we can possibly do.
Is your camera on a rocking chair?
Yeah, actually, it's an
You're
armchair.
making me dizzy, man.
It's
so.
Well, I'm in
remember...
a car. I'm in a car in Dominican Republic, and we're going over speed bumps. So.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Do you remember meeting Sandy for the first time?
Well, maybe not the first, but the first meeting I had with Sandy, we were actually at the Los Cabos restaurant, and Sandy and Kate had all these incredible plans and goals. I think they'd met with another realtor before me, and they had all these objectives of what they wanted to do. And they were these smart alecky 20-something kids, and I thought their goals were absolutely spectacular. And I was really happy that they had these great goals, and honestly, I think they've exceeded most of them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm sure they have. I think that the goals definitely expand over the years as well. From when we started, It was probably just like, I don't know, Sandy, what was it? Like the goals you're setting down? Well, we want to own like 3 houses and wholesale a couple as well every year.
Probably something like that. Yeah, probably. Yeah. Probably buy like 5 duplexes or something. Yeah, it was definitely pretty, in hindsight now, it's seemingly small, but I always think about that.
They seem pretty big.
Yeah, for sure. I always think I love the quote there that you can you always overestimate what you can do in 1 year and underestimate what you can do in 5 years or 10 years. Or there's Bill Gates, yeah. And we certainly did that. But a lot of people on this call helped us upgrade those goals over the years, so that's been awesome, and that's why I love seeing Michael doing his thing down there, and different. This is 10 years. If we look back on the show, 10 years, and I think back then, Michael, you were just being just not new as a realtor, but you weren't like 10 years in the business yet. You were maybe a few years in, and 5 years or so, and then you were buying your rentals and everything, but look at the 10 years back now, and you're living a different lifestyle. I was going to say much better. Probably it is better, but different. That's for sure.
I think so.
Michael,
And,
are you
know,
cold right now? No, it's a better lifestyle.
It's 31 degrees Celsius, so that's pretty good. Yeah, I think, like, if I could share one thing for everybody who's listening and just getting started, is I think many of us were treating ourselves like real estate experts when we didn't know shit, and honestly, a lot of us faked it till we made it, and then it just sort of, before we knew it, we were actually doing what we were hoping to do. So it really worked out really well for all of us. So yeah, but the key is to take action and then repeat and take action again and do it a third time and a fourth time and just don't stop. And when you run into challenges and when you run into some roadblocks along the way, you just find a different way to get there. And that's kind of what we did.
I remember you told the story once, something about picking up a couch with Sandy and Kate in the side of the road or something like that. What was
Absolutely.
that again?
Yeah, so this is while we were looking at real estate, and by the way, I'm trying to do it with a bit of a background here in the outside, and so yeah, I think Sandy could probably tell the story better than I, but we were looking at real estate and we were looking for potential flips, and we were in a 4-seat convertible, Mustang convertible, and Sandy, actually no, it wasn't Sandy, it was Kate. Kate says, I could flip that. And I could fix that up. And so, yeah, if there's a chance of showing one of those photos one more time, it was a lot of fun. We basically had a cat piss couch sitting on top of Sandy, and I'm driving a convertible down the highway with a top down and a full size couch right on top of us. So it was a lot of fun.
I was.
Sandy?
Well, I talk about.
Was she able to flip the couch?
I remember we did. I think we made a few $100s or something. It was not the highest use of our time probably, and it was a time where I was definitely sweating a lot at that moment with the couch piss smell and everything in the back of the car.
You earned the $200, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think if you got bought you some wholesaling signs?
This was also
needed, right?
This was also in South Oshawa. There was a.
Do you think if you got a traffic ticket, that would be considered a business deductible expense?
Maybe.
Anyway, and one thing I want to say as well, Rob, is obviously this is talking about Sandy, but yeah, the way you've evolved over the last 10, 15 years has been just as spectacular, and I'm just as proud of you as I am Sandy. And I know I had a very, very, very small role in both of you, but I feel like I'm proud of you nonetheless. So anyway, I wanted to congratulate both of you before I go. I'm with my people, so I didn't want to keep too long. So anyway, I just wanted to thank you for doing the podcast for as many as you did. And in my opinion, your podcast was as good or better than any other one that was around. And so anyway, congrats.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks
hey,
for
Michael, this show also marks 10 years of us doing the show. So
that's amazing.
That as well. Anyway, okay, thanks. Appreciate you stopping in.
All right. I just wanted to say hi. Like I said, I've got one day in Dominican, and I haven't seen these guys in 5-6 years. And again, that's the power of real estate is we made friends with people around the world, and we get to enjoy the fruits of our labor. So for those of you that are thinking of getting into real estate and you're talking about and you hear all the bullshit about the tenant issues and the mortgage issues and stuff like that, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So that's sort of the message I want to leave with you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
Have fun.
Yeah, bye.
Just for the record, I'm in Costa Rica, not Mexico. And if anyone wants to invest in Costa Rica, give me a call.
Well, I think I'm in Canada and I'm paying Mike's second mortgages because he's lent me money. So I hope he's enjoying all of the funds that I keep sending him. Have another margarita on me, Mike.
Hey, wait a minute. I'm doing the same thing.
He's probably
Can we
got
talk,
more mortgage, he's probably arranged more mortgages than me, and that's my profession.
God. Too
I
funny.
was going to ask you, Dion, maybe about we're looking ahead to this year and planning and whatnot. I know we don't have to get necessarily super specifics, but what's on the horizon with mortgages, or what are you foreseeing, or what's any insights into that side of things? You're the expert. Now that Michael's off,
Yeah.
you're the expert.
Sure. So, I mean, I think for the last 2 years, all of us have been waiting for some kind of positive sign. The Bank of Canada had really done their job in robbing the Canadian consumer of like positive sentiment about the market. And a lot of people sitting on the sidelines. I think we had the lowest volume of transactions last year than we had since the year 2001, more than 20 years. I don't know, you realtors would know better than me. But I did the math on that. And, in that same period where, we are basically last year the same level of transaction as 20 years ago, in the same period, our population grew by 10 million people in the same period. So it's actually, we actually had a net negative last year, even beyond the 2001 number. Now, as that relates to interest rates, the future of mortgages, the US Fed came out mid-December basically broadcasting that they have got staged drops in interest rates in the foreseeable future. And they actually, and I honestly, I've never seen a central bank do this, but they plotted a graph for the next 3 years out to an interest rate of 2.9% in the United States, down from 5.25% where it is today. And of course, when that happened, the Canadian bond traders saw that, the bond yields drop. And since then, we have seen a drop of around 0.75 or almost close to 1% on the 5-year rates. And some of our major lenders, major monolines. Now, the Bank of Canada is still verbally warning the Canadian consumer that, hang on, more rates. There could be more rate increases. And I think what they're trying to do in their language is still keep the feeling depressed, because the last time they were slightly positive, which was the first half of last year where we had a pause and the language is a little bit more positive, we saw an explosion in property prices just for the first couple of quarters of last year. They don't want to see that happen again. And so here's what I think is going to happen. Interest rates are going to probably be on the decline, but the government and the Bank of Canada in particular are not going to be hyping that fact up, right? That's what I see over the next year or so. Of course, we're going to have to watch the announcements around inflation, in particular, job growth. Real GDP growth last year, guys, was negative. I don't know if you guys saw this, but we had a certain rate of GDP growth in Q3, and then in Q4, the number was lower, right? And so we had two consecutive quarters of negative growth. But then at the same meeting, they revised their Q3 percentage, which made it look like we didn't have 2 negative quarters, right? And so they're kind of fudging the numbers, in my opinion. I think the economy is actually a little worse than what the government and these numbers are making us look like. In my opinion, we are in recession, especially if you do it on a GDP per capita number. And so the United States has told us they're going in a particular direction. We likely will have to follow. And also, you probably know this, and Quinton, you would know this. Quinton, are you getting 30-year mortgages, 30-year terms in the United States on the mortgages that you're taking, right?
Yes.
And I'm highlighting this because in Canada, we generally only take 5-year terms, meaning at every 5-year mark, the consumer is impacted. We get impacted faster than those in the United States. And so if the United States is going in that direction, we have to go in that direction because we feel the effects much faster. So long answer to your question there, Sandy. I don't know if that's helped.
Definitely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious how everyone's looking ahead this year in terms of your investment strategy. I know Ryan's doing more. I don't know what that means. Like instead of 30 transactions or he's going to like 50 again or something. I don't know, but I'd love to hear, because a lot of people have been kind of either sitting on the sidelines a little bit or a little bit, not quite as active as they have in some years, and I kind of see the market certainly from a price point, definitely near or at the bottom potentially. So I think there's certainly opportunities right now if you can make the financial part of it make sense. But that window of opportunity is going to be moving away pretty soon, I believe. So, are we getting more active this year? Is that part of your thought, Ryan, of why you're getting more active? Is it that, the opportunity is just too hard to miss, or what's any reasoning behind it?
Yeah, last year was more of an emotional decision. Honestly, I just wanted to take a break. And then this year, like last year, I tried to go and do less. I still did some, but I mean, generally speaking, I wanted to do less just because I wanted to take a break and I just wanted to enjoy life. Right. And I think that just to Mike's point, as he was on there, talking about being in Dominican and traveling the world and all this stuff, we did some traveling too. And that was a lot of fun, some business, some personal. But I mean, generally, you got to take a step back and say, okay, what are we doing all this for? And for every incremental dollar that you make, is it going to materially affect the outcome of your life? And if the answer is no, well, then making more money wouldn't be any better for you than not. So why bother, right? Is the quick question. Yes, everybody loves more money because it's important and the world runs on money. But like, I believe after going through last year, coming into this year, that money should enhance your life, not be ruled by it. Right. And going into this year, I've been planning land for the last, land planning takes time. So I've been planning land in the background. Something that is coming to fruition now. So if I decided, hey, you know what, now's a good time to build because I think the economic horizon is going to be better for new construction or land severances or rezoning or more density, those things are already in play. And because they take time and because I don't have to put in physical hours necessarily in the same respect that maybe growing a business would require or acquiring deals would require, all of that can take place in the background. And because it's been taking place in the background, now it can happen in 2024 if I so choose to build it.
Is season 2 of Hoarder House Flippers a go on HGTV or no?
No, we're not doing it. So no, they ran a second season. We were asked to be part of it. We did not end up being part of it for a number of reasons. But we decided to not do season 2. But they did run it, and it will be coming out at some point in the future.
Well, at least I won't be able to have to see you when I'm on my treadmill and I see like Ryan up there while I'm at the gym. I'm like, what the hell? I can't escape this guy.
Anytime there's reruns, I get text messages, Facebook messages, Instagram messages from people saying, hey, like I'm in the doctor's office and you're up on the screen, or I'm on the treadmill, or like I'm in the grocery store, like some crazy places, right? And they pop up and people send me a thing and be like, hey, I see you guys on TV. But it was a lot of fun to do that show. We enjoyed it. The people were great. The camera crew was great. Production was great. Everybody was good. It was just a really good, positive experience. And I think Sandy, to your point of growing a podcast, more so like a business card to like overarch the whole theme of it, doing a TV show is very much the same, right? Yeah. It's a business card, and it really goes down to the profile of, who is Ryan Carr, or who is any of the people on this phone call. If you do content, or you have a book, or you do a podcast, or you're a prominent face in the business industry where people know you, that all goes towards your credibility as an authority figure. So yeah, we had a good time doing the show.
Hey, could I ask Ryan regarding density, because you're working in that world more deeply than myself. What are you seeing? What has been approved, and what do you see happening in terms of just, let's say, the regular people out there who own a house in Durham region or in Toronto? I know in Toronto we've got this blanket, as long as you have enough land, you can build a 4-unit. What do you know is happening in Durham or further east, or Quinton?
No, 5 units. Sorry.
Oh yes, correct. Plus the garden suite, right? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, Toronto's 5. So I wrote about this in the book actually last year, and I talked about density being the number one driving factor. So I was saying like, okay, the basement apartments, that was like the gold standard for a long time. Well, when they came out with the whole coach house thing, allowing 3 units per property, a lot of municipalities now throughout Ontario are saying, okay, we understand that people want, a basement apartment and the main unit in the house, plus the garden suite in the back. Well, now we'll say, let's change the built form such that if we want to do a purpose-built triplex under one roof, like one foundation, one roof, a lot of that is being approved now also. Since then, and since mid to late 2023 and now rolling forward into 2024, you're seeing like the city of Toronto come out, they're saying we'll allow 4 units in a house plus a garden suite, so 5 in total. Some municipalities like Ajax are allowing 4 units as of right, provided you have parking and some various things. I think we will see 4 units become more and more common as time moves on, whether that's under one roof or whether that's two units in the main house and two in an accessory dwelling like a coach house. That's kind of yet to be seen, but I think that there's a business case for all of the above. Frankly, just with prices, you can't carry a house as a single family home or oftentimes even as a duplex anymore, depending on where you're buying.
Yeah, and I'll tell you from the mortgage perspective, I'm seeing that every day, as you can probably imagine. First-time home buyers, you used to be able to bootstrap it yourself in many cases where, and I'll give you this example. When I first started in this business more than 15 years ago, I was at Shepherd in Victoria Park, which is blue collar Scarborough, new immigrant Scarborough. And back then we were helping people with $45,000 incomes buy houses or townhouses in and around Scarborough. And those same houses, which they paid 200 for, are now worth $1 million.
Yeah.
But those same people or the same category of demographic aren't earning much more than 45 grand. They're making 55 grand now. Mm-hmm. So house prices are up 300%, incomes are up 25%. And this disparity is huge. So the extra income that a person can get from that basement or the 2 or 3 units extra is going to really help. But still getting in to buy those properties is a challenge. And that's a whole nother issue where we're seeing this transition of wealth from the parents to the children happening more so now than historically. And I think a lot more people are realizing they have to give this living inheritance to their children rather than waiting until they pass and give it to them in their wills. Wow. I think that's the future of real estate in Ontario in particular, because to get your foot on the ladder, it's so much harder than it was just 10 years ago.
Charlie Munger came out with something just before he passed away, and he said that people in the future need to be comfortable and more comfortable with just making less. And that was his future expectation on ROI and various things in the economic landscape that we have ahead of us. People just need to be comfortable with making less. And I think there was a past president, I forget who it was, I think it was in the 70s, and he said that our standard of living for modern times is just too high, and we need to be more comfortable with living on less. And I think about that from time to time, and I just think back and like, gosh, we've got public transit that runs 24 hours a day, which is good. We need that. We have roads that we could just jump on, jump in the car and drive as far as we want, as long as we want for, what used to be $120 license plate tag. Now the tag is free, right? Like all of these things that we come to enjoy in modern day living, I think is very interesting. And when you take a step back, we really do have a lot, but by having a lot, we also have to support all of those things. And when interest rates go up, the economic climate changes such that maybe those things that we have may not become as important, moving forward. So lots to think about for sure.
And the cost, what's funny is the cost of living is so crazy. Like I was talking to my partner, Andrew Brennan, in Mexico, and he was telling me that the prices are very similar to the prices in Canada. And I was like, Mexico? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yeah. And then, I was in the States and like the cost of things were really similar. So I'm surprised at that. When I heard Mexico and like, he was telling me going to like Burger King and buying a whatever meal was like $15, right? Or $20, something like that. I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Well, Quentin, you don't eat anymore, so that doesn't impact you.
Have you guys heard of the Big Mac Index, where they track the cost of Big Mac all throughout the world? Yeah, you Google it. It's called the Big Mac Index, and that's how they peg inflation. They peg it to the cost of a Big Mac.
Interesting. I haven't seen that.
Yeah. Like a Big Mac in Japan is so much, and a Big Mac in the States is so much, and they track cost of living and inflation to that. It's pretty interesting.
Interesting.
So actually, I'm going to pick up on something you touched on there, Ryan, which was that we may need to expect less moving forward. And what I'm hearing from, say, Quentin and Sandy, and I'm not sure what you're doing, Rob, but it sounds like a lot of you are moving up into this upper category of housing, larger properties, higher dollar costs to purchase. But all of us made our way there through buying those single families or duplexes and those types of things. And I'm seeing, and you guys know the numbers, where interest rates are right now and cash flow is, and even though rents are up significantly, we can't make those numbers work like we did just say 5 years ago, right? So the question is, how far will interest rates come down and will prices come down? I don't think we're ever going to see a point where they're going to come down to the point where we're going to be able to get that $500 to $1,000 cash flow that we were getting, say, just 5 years ago. I don't know if that's in our future, right? And what I can tell you is, before I came to Canada, I was in Australia. And Rob, you and I have spoken about this topic, where in Australia, people are happy to buy property with negative cash flow, banking on future appreciation in the asset, right? And that has been culturally accepted in Australia for more than 30 years. We're nowhere near there in Canada right now, but I think it's going to come down to a question going forward for these smaller investors: is positive cash flow going to be as important as it historically was? And if it's not, then is real estate still going to be important? I think it will be, especially when you do those comparisons to the alternatives, which are mutual funds, which is where most people would put their money if they're not putting it in real estate. And the thing is, the Canadian consumer hasn't ever, the Canadian investor that we all know hasn't ever purchased property knowing that it was negative cash flow, unless they were sort of those downtown pre-construction buyers, right? I think the future is one where we may expect less from cash flow in real estate, and bank a little bit more on inflation, on appreciation.
Could you comment on negative gearing with relation to, because I think that maybe is something that people don't understand.
Yeah. And Rob, you and I spoke about this on a previous podcast, but negative gearing is the idea that, yes, I'm buying a property. It's going to be negative cash flow. Oh, and by the way, in Australia, interest-only mortgages on investment property is standard, okay? Mm-hmm. That is not the case in Canada. It's never been the case, right? It's always an amortized mortgage over 30 years in most cases. So every month you're not just paying interest, but you're paying principal. In Australia, all major banks have an interest-only mortgage product. This makes cash flow a little bit better, right? But these people are buying these assets, 100% tax write-off on the interest, because the entire mortgage is interest, and they're negative cash flowing. Let's just say $5,000 a year. It's going to cost them to own this property, okay? But they're banking on the idea that that same asset is going to increase in value by $15,000. And so what they're looking at is, $5,000 backwards, but $15,000 forwards. We're still ahead, right? And what they're doing is they're comparing that $5,000 that they're putting into real estate versus putting it into the stock market or mutual funds, in particular mutual funds, where they don't get margin loans in mutual funds, right? And the returns are generally still better, and it's an entire tax write-off when it comes to the mortgage. So that's what negative gearing is. It's a term that I think, Quinton, I'm actually going to be speaking at a big Ontario Real Estate Association event in March. And this is actually an idea that I'm going to be putting forward to let Canadian realtors know that this is something that they may start to need to get familiar with in the decade ahead as it comes to real estate investing.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I want to say is that there are people who are cash flowing positive in Ontario, right? Like, but you're going out to smaller centers. So you're going out to like Peterborough or Belleville or Cobourg, or maybe you're going further afield to Kingston, or like maybe Welland or something like that on the other end, right? So, but I think over time, what's happened is, like, you could cash flow in Ajax, and then the purchase prices go up, and then the rents don't allow you to be able to do that without bringing it to like higher density. But then it moved out to like Whitby, and then Oshawa, and then Clarington, and now further out. The challenge with that is that if you're getting into tertiary markets, how does that look from a demographics perspective, and how is the asset appreciating, and what type of asset appreciation do you have? Because it's great to have cash flow, but really your wealth comes from the increase in the asset base that you own over a longer period of time. You're betting that in 10 years from now, that your asset base, if your asset base is 10 million, you're betting that it's worth 20 million, 10 years from now or more. And if that's the case, the real point is being able to carry that asset over that 10-year period of time. I can see how negative gearing would kind of play into that, but I still think it's possible, but it's becoming harder and harder. Definitely.
We're doing well in our student rentals, still, as far as cash flow goes.
Because you're by the bedroom, right?
Pardon me?
You're renting by the bedroom?
Right. Yeah.
And I guess,
Yeah,
Rob,
so-
my question there would be, what year did you acquire that student rental?
They were all within the last 5 years.
Okay, yep. But buying that same asset today, at the room rate you're getting, that's what I'm referring to in terms of the future, right? Because people who are buying today are buying at a higher base rate.
Right.
And I think a lot of people have been waiting for these prices to drop significantly more, and I don't think that's a reality from what
They're
I'm
showing-
seeing already.
They've
And I
shown
mentioned this
it's just an
a few
inverse relationship to mortgage rates, right? The price came down and the rate went up and your payments kind of net the same. And then as rates go back the other way, the price is going to go back up and your payment's going to be net the same. Like it's an inverse. It's people that are playing the spread, right? Is where the opportunity is. But in terms of your monthly payment, are monthly payments significantly higher now after buying an asset price that's fallen, or are they about the same?
You're talking about right now?
Yeah.
So
like
the reality is so right now, the prices haven't dropped to the point that the monthly mortgage payment is similar to it was in, say, 2020.
Okay.
Right? It's still elevated above that number. That's the truth. Yeah.
Significantly though, or is it somewhat tied?
We're pretty significant. We're
Really?
20% or so. Yeah.
Really?
On if we're talking, say, first time home buyer product in,
Mhm.
let's say, Durham region, for example, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So put simply, a bungalow that was worth 600 grand 5 years ago, right, increased to 900 grand, right, just in the year 2022.
Yeah.
But that asset hasn't returned to 600 grand. It's settled at around, say, 758, somewhere around there, right?
Yeah.
And so that hasn't come to the point where monthly payments are equal to what it would have been 5 years ago. That's the reality. Yeah.
Yeah, politically, that's a hot potato, right? If you had prices come down that significantly, and a majority of the Canadian population, has their wealth in their house, their primary residence, that's not going to be very beneficial to any political party. Like there's a certain amount that you can take, but at a certain point, it becomes like a killer for a political party, right? Like, and I think that'll show up in the polls. And really, governments are only 4 years, and they're just trying to get reelected.
So this is exactly the conversation that Sandy and I started this show wanting to have 10 years ago. So I do appreciate all you guys coming on here and bringing it to that point, reminding us of the way that it used to be and the motivations that we had. And thank you all for coming on and sharing this Sandy's final show with us.
Well, the
Thank you, Robert.
10-year anniversary, I think I want to highlight that for sure too, because look at all the stuff that's happened in 10 years. So many things to talk about, and so the next 10 years is going to be even, probably even crazier changes happening in real estate, but in the world too, right? So,
For sure.
so many interesting
I
things.
think I'll just say, like, to 10 years of consistency, like, kudos to you guys for actually putting in the work year after year. People rarely stick at one thing for 1 or 2 years, but for 10 years, that's really something that we should acknowledge. And, Sandy, as long as you're heading off into the sunset, but I think all of us have a question for Rob. Rob, what's next for Breakthrough?
Well, we just finished building a house here in Costa Rica not long ago. I think that we were going to try and sell it, but I've decided to get it ready for Airbnb. So it's up. It just went up on Airbnb. So that'll be our first short-term rental property, and it got booked up pretty good actually right away. So looking forward to that. And now I have the lot next door to it. So we got to get that project going and build something else there. I was going to build the exact same house, but I pivoted a little bit away from that idea just because of the costs and whatnot. But we're still in the planning processes there. And then, of course, like, I really enjoy helping all the Canadians that have come and invested down here. And that's been a lot of fun. And most of them have come from this show, right? Hearing on this show what I'm doing, and down here being able to help people invest here. So just more of that as well.
So you're going to keep the podcast running in its current sort of sequencing and stuff?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay,
I mean,
awesome.
there's going to be, I don't know yet. We're going to do something. I'm definitely going to keep doing it.
Awesome. Good to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
You gotta
Sandy's
maintain
already,
the- you gotta
Sandy's
maintain-
already given me his blessing on going forward with the show. So
Got it.
And maintain the
Some capacity will be there.
longest running Canadian real estate podcast. Gotta maintain
Yeah.
that for life. Someone's got to keep that going endlessly
We'll
You
get him
pass it
back
up to your
on
kids.
because we
find
can't
out
lose
what
that
he's
one.
doing in a
Can't
little
lose that
while
one.
as well.
Sandy wants a royalty. He's like, you keep doing it, but don't forget your roots.
The show's
That's
never
right.
made money, really, so there's no royalties to pay.
Yeah.
But it's all of the wealth that's come out of it has just been externally influenced. So, Dion, I love hearing you do your talks, and you make a lot of good points. Especially, I think you sort of gear that idea of what you were talking about there, just to show how you can take advantage of the market that we're actually in, despite all of these things that look bad in the market. So how can people get in touch with you, and maybe just some final words?
Yeah, sure. So, this is going to be an interesting year in real estate. From my perspective, if you're interested in buying real estate, you should go and get your mortgage pre-qualification today, because I feel like the next quarter in particular is going to see some significant moves. And you don't want to be in the middle of those moves and running around trying to get qualified. So that's the plug for my business, which is Kanga Mortgage, meaning that if you want to talk to some people regarding getting pre-qualified, be it your first home or your 10th, we work with a lot of investors. Please feel free to reach out. So it's kangamortgage.ca, and I'm on Instagram at the Dion Begg.
Very good. Ryan.
Yeah.
I know you got all kinds of things going on. Tell us about the podcast. Tell us about the book and how people can get in touch with you, and final thoughts.
Yeah. Here's the book here. The Highest and Best Use Playbook. I wrote it last year. You can get it at thehighestandbestuse.com. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the different places. And it's an Audible now, too. So if you want to hear me speak at you for the next 7 hours, you can get it on Audible. And I did actually
You
read
can't
it.
take breaks, or no? You just got to...
Oh, no,
No.
it was many sessions that you
Okay.
together. Yeah. Mike Dominguez.
No one's saying
he's
that when they're listening, they can take a break.
Oh, they can't take a break. You just get the bag
break.
of popcorn.
One
and
shot straight through.
Mike Dominguez actually recommended the guy, so it's too bad that he was off the call. But so it's on Audible now too. If people want to reach out, they can get me on Instagram, Facebook, all the different social media platforms, and check out the book at thehighestandbestuse.com.
Awesome. Quentin, what do you got going on? What do you want to talk about?
Well, people can connect with me at quintindesouza.com if you want to book like a 15-minute call, talk about real estate and wealth. I also have a link tree at QMan REI, and that's all my Twitter, Instagram handles. So that'll be good.
And Durham REI doing
Yes.
those every month.
Absolutely.
Those meetups.
Since
Invaluable.
2008.
If you're anywhere in the vicinity, definitely go and check
Yeah,
that out. And if
We
you're
have people
not,
coming for like 2.5 hours, people from Kingston, people from the other end of the city, like Oakville, coming out. So it's pretty cool.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would venture to say that all of us are here because of Durham REI.
100%. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
since Quentin has a link tree, let's all go on after, and we'll all book 15-minute calls with him. Just load up the calendar. I'm lonely. Somebody talk to me. I'm lonely.
Oh, no. You're not allowed. Forget it. You have to hold it for our next cigar time.
That's right. That's right.
Sandy, where are people going to find you going forward? And what do you want to leave us with?
Yeah, a lot of pressure on that one to leave 10 years. But I talked a lot about that during the show. So I think, I'm just really grateful for everyone here on the call for sure, for being here, having a great last show for me, but also celebrating our 10 years of educating Canadians in this space, and really grateful for our listeners. Rob, you of course been a great partnership. Thank you. Really the listeners. I mean, we do it all for sharing and providing great information for them. So I know we've got some long-standing listeners, so really grateful for them for tuning in and helping us through the 10 years in terms of supporting and growing the show and sharing it with friends and family and everything. And it's been a great ride. So I'm really excited for what's to come, whatever that might be. Anyone wants to connect with me or find out more about that, they can go to they can find me at It's Sandy McKay on any social media platform with that handle. And yeah, I got nothing to announce right now, but certainly look out for some more fun things. I'm going to continue creating content, sharing information. I've loved doing that here for 10 years, and we'll keep doing that in other places as well. And I hope to hear still in the future about many, cool things that our listeners have done and gone on to accomplish through all the different interviews we've done here and lessons they've learned. So I imagine that will continue going, and I hope the show keeps going and creates, I mean, we can't say we have the most episodes ever, but like I said before, we can always say we're the longest running. So I hope we can continue being the longest running podcast for.
Hey, Rob, maybe you can have him back as a guest one day if he's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. Of course, he knows that. I mean, we could talk to him on every one if he wanted.
That would be fun.
But that would defeat the purpose, I think. No, it's been an amazing journey here, and like we've had so much fun talking to our guests and learned so much. And thank you for putting this together with me and building it up to what it's been. So I just appreciate all that, and I wish you the best of luck, man.
Thanks.
Going forward. All right. Well, this has been a heck of a show. I do appreciate all of you guys coming on, sharing this with us. So it's been amazing, and we're going to have many more to come. So don't worry about that. We're still going to be talking to some great guests and carrying on. So we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.